38-year-old Zohar Shapira is a model Israeli citizen. And he spent 10 years as a model soldier, commanding an elite unit of the Israeli army. This is Combatants for Peace, a remarkable group of former Israeli soldiers and Palestinian fighters that Zohar co-founded in 2005. Members of Combatants for Peace frequently travel around Israel and the West Bank, telling their stories.
احنا بحاجة إلى جدران وجسور للمحبة والسلام والتعايش وليس جدران فصل عنصرية.
Bassam was 17 when he was arrested for attacking Israeli troops. Bassam and Zohar's commitment to non-violence was sorely tested at the beginning of this year, when Bassam's daughter was killed. 11-year-old Abir was on her way home from school when Israeli border police started firing rubber bullets and stun grenades near the students.
أنا أمرت نحن وأني لرسلنكم وإمكاخ إذا نحن نشير بوتو معقال شل ألموت عود دم وعود هيرج وعود وزلوا يعصيشهم دفار ולא נראה סוף לסכסוך הקטלני הזה.
The ultra-leftist Khmer Rouge ruled Cambodia between 1975 and 1979. All over the country, people were starved, tortured, and executed. It was a nightmarish world where even babies and children were killed as class traitors. The Khmer Rouge leader Pol Pot, known as Brother Number One, insisted they were creating a peasant utopia. In reality, it was class warfare on an epic scale. The cities were forcibly evacuated, the middle class all but exterminated. Seng Thierry was just 4 years old when her family was forced out of Phnom Penh. Her schoolteacher father was the first to die. He was executed for having worked for the former regime. 2 years later, it was her mother's turn. This is the man she blames for shattering her life. The former Khmer Rouge head of state, Khieu Samphan. Still living freely, he claims he had no idea his party was butchering its people.
Pourquoi? C'est la question qui se posait à moi.
Vous ne savez pas?
Et c'est pas. Dans le temps, je ne savais pas. Je ne savais pas.
He's lying.
Pour parvenir à une balance.
How can he not know?
Entre l'accusation et l'accusé.
He was one of the top 3 or 4 Khmer Rouge leaders. I mean, he's not going to tell the truth because mass murderers don't normally tell truths.
Early dawn on the outskirts of Wuxi, a small town to the east of Shanghai. This is China's first brat camp, an unusual mobile school, designed to reform spoiled kids, school dropouts, and troublemakers. For weeks now, the kids have been walking across China from one town to the next. Commanding this unusual troop is the 26-year-old supervisor, Guan Zhixiang.
Our recruits here are what everyone calls bad students because they've got bad grades and bad manners. But we think they are very bright. They are strong characters.
The long march carries with it moments of consternation and confusion, but also reflection and revelation. 6 weeks later, the children finally reached their headquarters. They walked a total of 800 kilometers and crossed 10 cities during their long march.
Every other day, the nuns at this church cook enough food for 600 people. And Iraqi refugees, Christian, arrive with their pots and pans to collect a hot meal. They're embarrassed that I'm filming. They ask me to stop, not to film them. They're proud. They don't want to be filmed in this poor, deprived state.
السوريين عددهم 43 عائلة. في عندنا العراق يجي 59 عائلة. مثلا هلا اليوم 600 نفر بياخذ أكل. والثلاث اليوم الخميس، السبت وثلاثة. ثلاث بعض يعني 1600 نفر بياكلوا بالأسبوع.
One of the women queuing for her allocated portion of peas stew and rice was Mona.
خطفوا بنتي. شو خطفوها؟ صارت عندهم اسبوع. رادوا من عندنا 10,000 واحنا بنقود نعيش. قابلوني تليفونات كنت بيسمعوني يعني هي صوتها بس تبكي. اخذنا من الكنيسه خواتي دينوني 5,000 ولا ما كان عندنا $5,000 اخذوا من عندنا.
I leave with this image in mind. An image of a lost life, a lost youth, a lost city, a lost future.
Even Papua New Guineans from the coast find life in the highlands pretty wild. Up here, tribal rivalry is still played out in traditional fashion. Tribes continue to fight over land and women, and each killing provokes another. This small village in the Nabilia Valley in Western Highlands looks downright peaceful. However, this gentle atmosphere is not what it seems. Preparations for war are being made. Tribal warrior Moses Kauga bought this weapon to fight a neighbouring tribe. The Ilka, Ukupa, Kuwa and the Kulga tribes have been fighting for more than 30 years. Justice Minister Bide Kimasopa admits PNG has a guns crisis.
The question that keeps popping up most of the time is how come we're getting firearms which are not standard government procurement?
Tim Bonwin doubts if he'll live to see the end of a conflict which has spanned 3 generations. He prays it won't be the same for his sons and grandsons.
I am travelling along one of the most dangerous borders in the world. I have come to see why it is now Chad, and not just its neighbour Darfur, that is suffering violence and thousands of displaced people. As I drive, I see deserted village after deserted village. I soon come across Chadian displaced herders who have fled their usual grazing grounds for fear of violence and no water. With the spillover of hundreds of thousands of refugees from Darfur, these wells are now close to running dry. So we've just been stopped by a rebel group, which is all around this area in eastern Chad is full of rebel militias and groups. They boarded my car and insisted we follow them. The situation was very tense. But when they learned I was a reporter and not a spy, they opened up. And what they told me, no other reporter had covered. Their former enemies, the Janjaweed, who in Darfur and Chad are guilty of terrible atrocities, are now leaving the Sudanese government and joining these rebels. The next day, a call came through that the Janjaweed leader had agreed to meet me. Usually shrouded in secrecy, never before have such men agreed to speak to the international press.